Hello, fellow doom scrollers. Hello, Chetan. How are you,
Hello,
mate?
Rocco. Good morning. I'm doing good, man.
You sound a little bit flatter sometimes than you usually are. And it's today on
Yeah.
my live. We were talking about that sine curve of life
Hmm.
that we all actually, that's a reality for all of us, yeah?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's such a good segue, actually.
Hmm.
If anyone watches this later, that's a really good segue to bring us all into the headspace about what we're talking about today, why we're meeting, and the why as well. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I mentioned in my live video today, as part of the 20-day live um, experiment that Chetan and I are both running, that we have this natural sine curve to life.
Yeah.
Seasons work that way, a day works that way, our moods in a month work that way. And because that's a reality, and because everything has to have a spring, a summer, an autumn, and a winter, just naturally in the course of a project, a conversation, a relationship, and we have to go through these phases. Agile is the corporate world's answer to how to integrate that
Hmm.
reality into the way that you work and to structure your stance, your perspective, your headset, your activities,
Yeah.
your expectations from yourself and from everyone else around that, and then create kind of like a structured ceremony so that you'll notice 2 weeks ago, that's when we did our retro. We looked back,
Hmm.
asked ourselves the retro questions, and now it's just like spring going into summer. We're just working on our stuff. So today, what we're looking at is just our project and our community roadmap.
Hmm.
That includes the calendar of when we'd like to do things. So that's both upcoming events, but it's also a kind of cadence that we're trying to set. Like one of the things I spoke about today that's going to be a reality for the A Better Way community is a Saturday service. That's where you can come and either Chetan or myself will actually run a service. It's just like it used to be when you go to church, except there's no dogma. And it's not going to be this denomination or that religion or this mythology. It's just going to be whatever's coming through, the signal on the day. And we're just going to be talking about the symmetry that these ideas have inside of our lives and a richer way of engaging with the present moment, our own realities, just the way you would expect from a spiritual service. And it's a way to look after our spiritual hygiene as well. So that's the kind of calendar we're working on. And then there's things that Chetan and I now want to start doing. We want to invite collaborators through the door of a certain kind. Like we need collaborators to help us with reach and marketing. It's not our A game. It just isn't. We've got other great A games, and now we need help and support in that space. But we still want to define the portfolio that someone may pick up that we're going to have to carry badly for now.
Hmm.
So we want to structure our work a bit, figure out what that roadmap looks like, what we're going to build first, what's coming next, and what's on our minds, and then maybe this will jog the community. As small and modest as the subscription is now, then people will start thinking, actually, you know what I want first? I want something that tells me X. Now, Chetan, I don't know if you want to jump in here and let me know if this is the tone that you imagined.
Yeah, yeah, this is it. This is it. I
Okay.
mean, like I said, I'm not too prepared for the roadmap, but this is what I want to talk about too. What are we doing next? How we are planning on doing it? What are the building blocks? Because we're
Yeah.
literally talking about the building blocks right now.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be prepared. You've been preparing for this actually for weeks and months because we've been talking. You actually are. You just
Yeah.
don't know it. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, this
Hmm.
can happen. This is a reality. So sometimes we think that there's something extra we ought to have done, but this is it. It's to sit and
Hmm.
worry about these questions and these problems and try and have meaningful answers to them. And then um, when you actually start sitting down with a session like this is how you make things serious. This is how
Hmm.
you make it serious. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we've got a few tools that we're going to flash up. There's something that is top of mind for me, and I don't just want to dive in anywhere, but the most
Hmm.
topical thing is that last Substack I wrote. I'm talking about
Hmm.
initiation.
Mm,
I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about in the Bukowski piece the community engagement, the sponsorship, the filling our bellies. Yeah. So I
yeah,
just want
yeah.
to open our space in that intentionality.
Mm,
We're trying to make the point being made in that Bukowski piece was we all live in the world and we all live with the necessities of what it means to live in the world. We all have to eat. Our structures and cadences and our roots have to be sustainable and sustained, healthy. And that means we need to build strong foundations, and it needs to be living forms of integration with community and with place. And one of the first cabs off of that rank. So let's just first open space with that mindset. Yeah. Whatever we're doing here is not idealistic. We want it to be rooted and grounded and living in the world. That's the banner above the door here. Right? And the banner above that banner is a better way. Like we're trying to introduce, search, explore better ways to do everything in life. We're figuring out now that a big part of that is initiation.
Yeah.
Personal, individual, collective, raising awareness of what initiation is. And now I actually want to start talking about the structure that we can hold and formulate so we can welcome people in either to one-on-one individual kind of classes. So remember, I'm framing this in a jiu-jitsu sense. Have you read that initiation article of mine?
No.
Self-initiation for the serious player.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh, boys and girls, Uncle Chetan really let himself down here today. So I strongly recommend that's the homework that you'd want to do if you really want to understand what we mean by initiation. And then the other first cab off the rank is the other article I wrote, which was about how to live across two lives, because we've got these existing cadences and realities, and we have to show up like maybe in a day job. And then that gets us in a... Everybody will have the experience of being in a task or a job, yeah, that you're deeply engrossed in, and it takes a certain kind of presence in your body, a certain kind of mindset and form of thinking. So it might be like in a spreadsheet where it's non-linguistic and you're thinking in a matrix and a formula and that kind of relational mode. And then somebody comes to your desk to interrupt you, and you've got to break out of that, get into their frame. And it's not that you mind helping them or that you're not good at the thing that they're asking you, but it rips you out of this that you weren't prepared for. Now you must suddenly have this conversation, try and come online and be as helpful as possible. Usually takes 2 or 3 goes because you both are talking from a different place, and then they get what they want and they go away, and now you don't know how to change gears back into this task. So now you waste cycles, you're getting a little bit anxious, you get a little bit frustrated at the wrong person, you're now wondering, should I have not been interrupted? Should I work from home? Should I go get a meeting room? And the biggest problem was that you didn't put down this task in a structured way, like writing a change log, and then make that conscious transition, and then negotiate the time limit, and then come back to this and then pick up your change log so that that can be a bit more of a structured, intelligent change. Now, there's lots of clever things to consider and do, and we don't know the perfect answer to this. So the first user story that I want to add, that's not a big plan or project or vision for a better way, is literally just that simple thing. What's the practice that I can use to transition between tasks, and specifically to transition between persona and this version of myself, my whole life almost, that I have to, I'm a different me at work and I'm a different me at home. That doesn't make me inauthentic. It means out of necessity, I need to show up in a certain way here. And out of necessity, I need to show up in a different way over here. And don't we all just have that reality? So for me, it's this spiritual, mystical job. And then it's my father, dad, husband, cooking dinner, doing groceries, taking the bins out. And it's exactly the same as that job at work. The distraction is not, I don't resent anyone in my family, but changing gears and changing back, what does it do? It destroys my momentum. It raises my anxiety. It slows down my progress and my ability to be present in both spaces. Right? So then when I have a weekend, I have a Saturday, a Sunday, a Monday, I sit with Maya, and then Tuesday I come back and I'm like, fuck, what was I working on? And then it takes me so long to get back into that. Now that whole thing, I can't be the only one that struggles with that transition backwards and forwards, and that thinks that there must be a better way.
Right.
And so now what we're doing, I don't have the answer yet.
Mm.
I know
Mm.
everyone, Dintna's waiting for me to write the answer, you're waiting for me to write the answer, but what we're going to do is we're going to show the community what it looks like to create, to agile our way towards this answer. And
Mm.
even whatever we come up with won't be the practice, it will be 1.0. That's going to
Yeah.
still in time get a 1.1 or 1.2. So I want to talk at a big picture today,
Mm.
briefly,
Mm. Mm.
and then I want
Mm.
to just take one isolated thing and
Mm.
just
Mm.
talk about the transitioning,
Yeah.
that modality, that protocol.
Mm. Mm.
What do you
Mm.
think
Mm.
about that?
I like that, Rocco, because that's a relatable experience I have as well. In fact, I might go on to say that I sometimes feel like I lead three lives because
Me
I have a
too. Yeah.
day job. Right? The day job is I'm not going to use too many adjectives here, but the day job is a different beast.
A
My
malaise
family
of
life is
meaninglessness. Yeah.
exactly right, and then navigating through them. There's a part of me which does not want to actually put on any mask and just be who I am even there.
That
But
takes effort itself.
that takes effort itself, and even then, I it's still a different manifestation of who I am. Like when I'm working with you, when I'm working towards a better way, or when I used to work on the unlearning playground, the thoughts, the things that I'm putting into practice, putting into words, putting out on video, that's very different compared to even the words I would have to say to my manager or my co-workers, etc. Right?
And
It's just a whole different ball game.
even within just a better way, there's
Yeah.
multiple persona that you have to adopt. Like in your home, you have to be a
Mm.
son to your mother, and you have to be a husband to your wife, and also a friend
Yeah.
to her, and sometimes
Yeah.
kind of a
Yeah.
teacher or a collaborator so there's multiple roles we have to
Yeah.
shoes we have to step into, and we try and do each of these things. Now there's clever ways
Yeah.
to do that, right? So I'll just give you
Mm. Mm.
a little bit of
Mm.
a intro. So let me give an SME experience or an SME insight into this.
SME, subject matter
Subject matter
expert.
expert. So, like, I'm some technical analyst that's come in and I'm telling you a bunch of nerd stuff so that we can work this into our understanding. So, we're not just
Hmm.
trying to write just the user story,
Yeah.
because now
Yeah.
we've explained the users. So, what is a user story for everybody? It's a discrete packet of intentionality that you can focus your presence, your discernment, your intentionality, your craft, and your calling. It's literally how you product manage your own becoming.
Hmm.
A product is developed as a combination of user stories. And so what you do is you've got to identify the user experience. So the user in this case is as a person who is trying to be more integrated and authentic across multiple circles, intersecting circles of life, self and spiritual, relationship and container, and then work and profession. And each of those have like yin yang dots in each other's circles. Across all of that, I'm trying to converge towards a single unified self, but also have this contiguous experience, because there's a version of myself that has to traverse all of those three modes. And I want to also be able to switch between them in a more structured, more conscious, more ceremonial, ritualistic way, even if it's a change log or whatever other tricks I can bring to the table,
Hmm.
so that the thread is continuous, so that I can manage the timing transition more efficiently. Um, I spend less cycles wondering where I was. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we would need
And
to word that.
um, one more thing I would like to add is
Yeah.
I also want to progress. I want to see growth for myself, for the self that inhabits that particular avenue of my life, almost across all these dimensions.
Yes.
So my spiritual life, there is nothing in my professional life that actually wants a spiritual growth for me. You understand that? So what I mean is, I want
Oh,
to
there's
grow
nothing inherently in those individual demands that takes care of this overarching demand that you are trying to make sure is taken care of across all of these, which is
Yeah.
I don't want any of these to dilute and
Mm.
separate me. I want them
Mm.
to all collaborate and converge towards
Mm.
a even higher goal of actualization
Exactly.
on top of that. Yes.
Exactly.
Right, right,
And
right.
the busyness of our lives, especially the corporate life, especially the family life, can actually end up sucking the soul out of the spiritual life at times,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And
So,
that can end up taking a back seat. In
right.
fact, while that should be the master, it may end up becoming the emissary at times. You know,
Just say that whole
so
piece again. I think I lost something because I was thinking ahead.
I was saying the busyness of our lives, of our modern lives, especially around the corporate life and then around the family life, may end up making it so that our spiritual life ends up taking a back seat. While I want it to be at the helm,
Yes, I
really,
see what you're
right?
saying now about the master and
Mm.
the emissary. In fact, you
Yeah,
get so left-brained about trying to fit it all in and structure it all that you sometimes get so into the doing of it that you forget the thread of that you were following in the first point anyway.
exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right,
And
right. That's a key
that's
thing.
literal. Yeah, that's literally my experience right now, Rocco, with the 20-day life challenge, with everything that we're doing here, with the life, with the corporate life, with my family life. I'm just so busy that, like you have told me multiple times already, that I've grown manifold over the past few weeks. I haven't had time to sit with it. I'm going through an alchemy, but I'm not having time to actually sit through the alchemy and process it and understand and internalize it. And that's one big thing that I feel right now. B- In very common everyday parlance, I need some alone time. I need some me time.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
So the way we structure all agile work, so I'm just going to share
Hmm.
my screen if I can.
That should be helpful.
Share
Beneficial.
screen, entire screen. I'm just going to share the entire screen, I think. Um, just tell me if you can see that.
Yes. How to psychopomp. Awesome.
Yeah, psychopomp. Cool word. But I want to
Hmm.
focus on this little bit here,
Hmm.
the user story. So it says, as a something, I want
Hmm.
to blah so that I can.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything that a user story entails has to be in the purview of a so that.
Hmm.
We're,
Okay.
we're not
Hmm.
just doing stuff, and the so that helps us round off everything that we're doing so that it always contributes towards this higher intended goal. So I mapped the higher intended goal here. It says how to live across two lives, how to transition, how to maintain a change log. The wider project, remember, is the product management of your own becoming. You don't want to get so involved in one technical thing that you miss this idea of what a product manager needs to do. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's look at two factors of that um, in our work here. Product. So
Hmm.
a product manager is someone, it's a form of leadership that you apply to developing and creating something.
Hmm.
In a business context, for example, a product manager is responsible for ensuring that the product solves real problems for real people, creates value for the business, and stays viable and relevant in its ecosystem. Now, we just have to translate that. Obviously, maps, we understand what that means, yeah?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
means that this role, this archetype that we have to adopt, the overarching archetype, the brain that we're using to structure a user story,
Hmm.
it sits at the intersection of strategy, design, technology, and user experience. It involves understanding the user needs, defining the vision and strategy, prioritizing the features. Some things are more important than others. Coordinating the different teams. Now, in ourselves, that's all internal competencies and capabilities. And then measuring outcomes to make sure we're actually steering towards something. So we don't
Hmm.
just create the user story and set and forget. Later on, when we've now given this a cycle of trying it, we're going to come up with a 1.0, build
Hmm.
something, test it, see how it goes, and then refine it so that it
Hmm.
gets better, so that we can keep moving towards a better way. This is how the
Hmm.
project's going to work. Yeah. Now,
Hmm.
good product management doesn't just create a feature, it stewards coherence. It ensures that what is built is meaningful, usable, sustainable, not just functional. In many
Hmm.
ways, it's more about midwifing a solution through every stage of its life. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, we understand what that means. So we know now what it means to say the wider project is to product manage your own becoming, your own actualization. And there's three marriages here.
Mm.
The marriage of self, container, and work. Self is your personal development.
Mm.
Container is your family, your relationships, that functioning, including the logistics, right? Like the
Mm.
finances and who's going on holiday when and when you eat and all of that structure. And then
Mm.
work, which is now sometimes for us, you and I, it's split into more than one thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So that can be kind of self-focused and then giving to the world focused, and sometimes
Mm.
there's a bridge between those two. So now we all know
Mm.
what we're talking about. And then
Mm.
the SME in me is going to bring up this idea of a psychopomp to help us understand. So in astrology and in mythology, there's this archetypal character called a psychopomp. A psychopomp just is like a Carl Jung kind of an idea. It's this archetypal character that can cross the boundaries between two worlds. The messenger of the gods, the one that can go to Olympus where the gods are, and to the world of man and to the underworld. Yeah. So it can speak to it's the one that delivers the souls to the world of the dead or carries messengers between the gods. So any character that you encounter that can do this kind of traveling is called a psychopomp.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Mm. So,
So Mercury, the
Loco, I have one
messenger of the
question.
gods. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your the title of that Trello piece was "How to Psychopomp." You
Yeah,
are
that
going to
would be like saying
psychopomp.
how to Hanuman, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but
Yeah.
the psychopomp archetype, you are not teaching us to psychopomp. You are gonna psychopomp this user story here, or
No, 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 no. We are each going
mm,
to connect with the idea of that archetype because that is the universal anchor in our mythos that helps us traverse these different worlds. So why would we reinvent that wheel? We're going to take I'm not saying it's going to be the whole answer,
mm,
but how foolish would we be if we didn't take such a universal archetypal model of answering the exact problem that we're describing? So we're looking at the
mm,
world now through the archetypal lens as one data point.
you have me. Yeah.
Right. Now, the fun thing becomes if you want to now figure this out, let's think of all the famous psychopomps in the stories, right? So now,
Mm,
this is why I always go back to ChatGPT. This is how I build a powerful user story, right? I go to the archetype and then I go from there. So I say, tell us about, well, let's first give it this whole article. Digest this. Yeah. So it's got
okay.
that, right?
Mm,
So stop, I don't care what you have to say. Now we are creating a user story to develop a protocol to change, what did we say? Change lives or between lives?
mm,
And examining the psychopomp archetype to inform our reasoning. My typing is terrible today. Now okay. So it's going to give us a whole bunch of boring bullshit. Yeah. Hey, this is interesting. Create conditions
mm,
for consent, emphasize agency and responsibility. I think this is confused. This is a personal, individual protocol we use to change life context. Switch between life contexts. The consent is redundant. As a sovereign individual, I want reliable, coherent inner protocol so that I can effectively transition between life contexts, identities, or states of being without loss of coherence, agency, or dignity.
Mm.
Okay, it's a good start.
That's a good start, really. Yeah.
I'm just going to save this and say ChatGPT. ChatGPT wrote this. And then I wanted to tell us, give us examples of psychopomps. So Hermes, Anubis, the ferryman, Odin, the Valkyries, Hecate, Mercury, Yama. Tell us about Yama.
Yum. Oh, the god of death. Awesome. Okay. Oh, and then shamans as well. Mm.
White buffalo woman, shamans. They operate in the threshold spaces between the worlds. They neither fully belong to one world or the other. They do not judge. Facilitate passage. They do not force it. They hold coherence and navigate disorientation on behalf of the soul. Okay, I think I can do a better job of that. So let's talk about the psychopomp. We just have to think about this thing that can provide coherence. So Hermes, for example, is a messenger of the gods. His main feature in astrology is being able to deal with the tension of opposites, because it's how you cross that boundary. So he reduces things down almost like in an analytical way. And so when I thought about that, I thought, what would be useful for me? And I almost think about like one programmer sits down and works on something, and then they have to get up and go, and somebody else has now got to sit down and pick up the next shift, but they don't have the continuity of the guy before. Right? So what I would write is I would write a change log. This is captain's log. This is where I was. This is what I was working on. This is the thread. And then I write a shorthand in it. I don't have to make it perfect. I just have to make some scribbled notes so that I remember what the model or the structure or the that was of this article I'm writing or this product I'm building or this thing that I'm working on. And I need to make like a little post-it note and stick it on there and leave it. But now where does that post-it note go? A journal, a book. Where am I keeping track of this? So now it's telling me that I need something wherein, like when Anubis goes and weighs the souls, or when Yama goes and judges the souls and tells them how they've got to be sorted, something is written in the great book, or something is recorded or measured or weighed. I need somewhere now to facilitate that continuity. Yeah. So this could be a journal with 3 colored pens. Green is this, purple is that, blue is this. I don't know what practical is, but I know now I need something to do that. Yeah. The second thing I need is almost like a. Do you remember those prayers I wrote for beginning a day and for ending a day? The one's called retrospective and the other one's called this day. Yeah. Those are these beautiful bookends that you could put at the beginning of a day or end of a day, or beginning of a season at the end of a season. Now we just need something much shorter, much smaller, that, because you saw the way those prayers were structured, yeah? The point of that is it looks like a prayer or a puja, but it actually is an actual instruction of what you need, the thoughts you need to step through, the presence of mind you need to remember, the intentionality for yourself you need to connect with. It just organizes your thoughts, yeah?
Show us
Now
that
they
once,
must,
Rocco.
huh?
Do you wanna project that once and show us those
Yeah,
prayers?
let's do it. Let's do it. We might not get through everything we intended to do today, but it doesn't matter because we can just keep working on this, right?
And I wanted to ask you, these prayers, they should be customized for your particular um, season that you're ending, your particular cycle that you're ending, or can they just be generic poems generic prayers that we always use?
There's no fixed rule, but I mean, I'm applying my wisdom and understanding to all of this. And I realized that the reason that we made room for religions at all, see, here is one called This Day, the Practice, and Retrospective, the Practice.
Hmm.
What we're saying here, Chetan, is that there's no rule as to what that is, but the reason that religion worked at all is because it became a container and a framework that multiple people could subscribe to, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That could provide them the major structure, the major tool set for all of these questions and answers that we're sitting with now. Now, if you have to formulate all of that yourself, that's you might not be very good at that, you know. But Rocco, he studied psychology, he studied Jungian archetype, he's got a thought for this kind of process. He spends
Hmm.
his life doing that. You can subscribe to whatever you want, but that is my function in life. Don't you just want to use the pundit for the job that the pundit does? Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
so there's
Hmm.
no right answer, yeah?
Understood. Yeah.
So what this is, for example, is it says this is not a morning prayer, it's a navigational function, right?
Hmm.
It's actually also priming my psyche and reminding me again, oh, yes, this is the thing that I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the one for the morning, it says, this day, awakening again into this world so that I may grow deeper into life and reach further towards the one that beckons us. Now, that means I want to grow deeper into this life, grow deeper like the tree. I want the roots, want to be more integrated into my life. I don't just want to become something epic.
Hmm.
And the reason I want to grow deeper into life is that the deeper the roots grow, the further the branches can reach.
Hmm.
Because I'm trying to reach further toward the life that and the world that is beckoning us,
Hmm.
which is the
Hmm.
signal of the
Hmm.
North Star, a better way. Yeah. So I'm
Hmm. Hmm.
rising this day, which is always about ascent and transcendence, to revisit my response,
Hmm.
to be
Hmm. Hmm.
reinitiated into this again. I put it down and now I'm picking it back up again. There's actually something important about putting things down and picking them up again, because it's like when you're trying to hold a child, you pick them up in a hurry, but it's actually uncomfortable for you and the child. Sometimes you've got to put them down, adjust your body and your grip and your stance, and then now you can actually hold them better, you know?
I like that.
It's not
Yeah.
the load that kills us, it's the way we carry it. And sometimes it actually makes sense to put it down, reorganize all the baggage on the camel, and then
Hmm.
go off again. Yeah?
Yeah.
Rising this day to revisit my response to that invitation, because this
Hmm.
invitation is always there. Now I'm reminded
Yeah.
now that this is also an invitation.
Hmm.
Awakening this new day, let me call to prayer all the parts of the scattered wholeness I call myself. This is talking to exactly that problem. You know, we've got all these scattered bits of ourself: shadow, inner child, protector, critic. There's so much going on. Now we need to bring everyone into like a morning stand up and just say, okay, guys, who's working on what? What's happening? This is the stand up, morning stand up prayer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like
Now
that.
it's
Yeah.
long though. And the thing
Hmm.
is, you can't actually do it every day, but when you start losing track, you come back to it. It's a practice. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, all
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
saying is we need a shorter, cleaner,
Hmm.
more repeatable one that serves a similar kind of function, a clarifying, coherent, sh- shaping function to our mind, our nervous system, our everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
This one, let me not be so sure to do this or repeat that, to avoid this or bow to that. Let me sit for a moment with a question of who I am, the answer of which is always expressed as desire. So this is trying to re-initiate us back into our sense of beauty, our sense of
Hmm.
yearning, our sense of longing, our relationship to the great so that, you know, and then it puts us through
Hmm.
a bunch of challenges, um, invites us to make space,
Hmm.
invites us to invest well, which is the alchemy program, reminds us to honor the beauty and strength our bodies are still capable of, you know, which also initiates a thought about time and change that's coming.
Hmm.
And then it reminds me to interrupt my busyness and my deep investment in the drama and the weeds of life so that I can bring myself back to this understanding throughout the day. And it tells us that the aim of this is to lead yourself better, to product manage your own becoming. So that was the
I get
premise.
the understanding. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so to me, Psychopomp might not be the best answer, but it's a nice way of collecting that thought. To me, the user story should be as a serious player of the sacred game. In other
Hmm.
words, somebody that's a committed Somebody might like jiu-jitsu, but you become a serious player of that game when you actually sign up to a gym and you go regularly and weekly. And when somebody asks you, what do you do for personal development? You can say, I do jiu-jitsu, right? So you'll know I teach the sacred game. So to be a serious player is to commit now to this game, to come to classes, not every week, but regularly, and to subscribe to this mode of actualization and initiation and development. Yeah. So we're saying now, this is for anyone, but I'm writing it specifically for somebody who's connected with this project. Right. As a serious player of the sacred game, I want, and I quite like this, I want to accommodate context switching between different lives or worlds I have to inhabit. And remember, the reason we need to inhabit these is because of our dharma. Our
Which has
sense
multiple
of
meanings itself.
calling, our sense of duty in the world, our sense of
Duty as
desire.
well.
Like we're trying to tick all of those boxes, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Calling, duty, and purpose.
Disciplines, purity, truth. But the point is, what they really are talking about is this whole game, you know? And that whole game has to be centered on our desire, our calling, our North Star. Yeah. But half of the problem that we have to have these different personas is because, and that Michael Mead message is, when we come into the world and when we come into relationships and work environments and projects and things, half of that is fitting in with the shape of the community, the organization, the structure, the family unit, the container, yeah. And so when we play the sacred game, we're actually inviting people into community, and part of that is so that you can progress your dharma, but part of that also has to be the duty component to the structure that you belong to, which is acting like a container for your actualization. Part of that is civic duty, part of that is fellowship, part of that is giving, not just receiving, yeah. So these are the different lives or worlds we inhabit. We're admitting here it's both these. It's not an act of inauthenticity. It's literally how we discover our authenticity and our actualization through the complication and difficulty of trying to inhabit lives that are pulling us in three different directions. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Across 3 marriages. And here I wrote above the 3 marriages. This is what David White tells us about, yeah? So that I can be more efficient, not lose momentum, or let's say optimize momentum,
Be more
or inertia,
coherent.
yeah, and thereby optimize my becoming. So I'm spending more energy on value add than I am on non-value add. So how that works is, if I had any process that I have to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, there's things here, right, that I have to do, right? What we're saying is that we look at a process like that, but actually when you're a process engineer, you look at the process like this. And you say, this is value add and that's non-value add. So what I really want to do is I want to shorten this if possible. So let's say I actually want to try and do this, because this is irrelevant. Yeah, this bit. I want to try shorten that. Yeah? I want to spend less time. This is time. I want to spend less time on the non-value add and more time on the value add. Right. And if we think about that simple invitation, switching gears, how much is me spinning my wheels, picking up, finding that thread in the dark? And why I like the idea of a psychopomp is you've got to imagine that you're a soul on a journey, and every time you go into a new world, you can't find your path or your thread. Now you've got to hunt around for this thing, right? All of that hunting around, that's always described in the stories where people go into the underworld. They have these horrors, and they feel lost, and then they feel like they weren't connected to their dharma, then they feel judged. I'm sorry, but we're actually having those internal experiences every time we change gears. That is actually what's happening in the psychology. And so that means we need to, if there's recurring themes that are coming up, they need to be lifted up almost and made into their own user story, because it means we're always worrying about judgment. We're always worrying about this. That's a separate issue. You can't make that more efficient. It's calling you out about something that you need to fix in your life. But for the rest, it's just this habitual spinning your wheels looking for the answer. And that's what we're trying to solve for here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what this should look like acceptance criteria, is a short verbal mantra, and a protocol. And these two work together.
The mantra and the protocol of switching context, basically.
Yes, yes, yes. So what I see it as is, what works for me, my mantras work is because I hear what I think as I learn what I think as I hear myself speak. I can deeply dive into the symbolism of the mantra and the words, and I can have like a personal, meaningful connection. It's how I feel safe. It's how I feel I belong to the process. But then I can just say it briefly, and I can say it shallowly. But if I'm struggling, I'm automatically called into the depth of what that little mantra means, and I can connect with it again. And it's like an anchor or like a homing beacon. It brings me home to the sense making of it again. That's why mantras exist. Yeah. And then the protocol is like, if you've got to imagine that you're a ship and a captain, or you've got to imagine that you are a business that's got 3 people doing the same job or similar jobs. And every time the one guy gets up and sits down, there has to be this handoff between them so that something is retained. Yeah? That to me is like a captain's log or a change log. Yeah. Now the question becomes, how can so I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to tell them what needs to be included in such a change log. So all I can do is tell you about my life. This is how I'm thinking about building this, and I want to hear your thoughts. Right? And maybe we can wrap it up there, because I don't think we can talk about the long-term roadmap. We'll just talk about this user story today, and we'll call it quits. So I'll be writing a series of articles, preparing videos or a program or something. I'm thinking towards something better, but I realize there's lots of ideas that have to come together for that. Like I've been speaking about it recently, the container initiation, the project, my role in that, how we invite people in. There's so many aspects, right? And I'm trying to hold all of this alive. And then Dimpna appears at my door and she wants to talk about what we're going to eat for dinner tonight. And that's an important conversation, right? Yeah. Because that conversation impacts our daughter, her energy levels, her mood, her sleep time, which is our whole life. These are not small things, right? And she's got a busy life, and that's got logistics entailed. And even though I've still got an hour of work to go, right? She's going to the shop now. She needs to know the answer to that now. So I've got to do this, right? And then I do that, and I come back, and I've lost my train of thought. And then she is secretly getting frustrated at me because my work's not progressing. And I'm getting secretly angry because my work's not progressing because I don't have momentum. And then she goes, but what do you think is happening to my momentum? And I go, what's the actual root cause there? The root cause is none of us have protocols for switching and for keeping track and then for picking back up again. So for me, it should sound like this. Just give me 1 second. Pause. What's in cache? So let me make some notes here. What is a pause? I need to just ask someone for 1 second. I need to inspect my cache. And that's a trick because it's my energetic cache, my nervous system, psychological, yeah, thoughts, feelings, the so that I need to, and then I need to process and parse that cache. Some of it needs to go into, it's called sentencing. That's what the Anubis psychopomp archetype means. He comes and he weighs the soul against the feather. It's a form of judgment, a form of sentencing. Yeah. Like when you sentence somebody for a jail term or you sentence something. So when you look at records or you look at data or you look at cache and you want to allocate to long-term memory or short-term memory, you have to do sentencing to say, this is the dharma of this piece of information. This is the dharma of that piece of information. I'm sorting it out into its places. Yeah. And I have to figure out whether this goes into short-term memory, like offline memory. In other words, must I write this thing down somewhere? Or a message for Rocco 2, another version of myself. Like there's something that I'm realizing now that was a aha, I need to pass this on to my wife so that we can solve some snag between us. Like and I don't want to lose it. I want to write it down so that I can pass that message on like Hermes or like Mercury, the messenger. Yeah. And then I want to literally leave notes for myself. That's what I mean by offline memory. Yeah. Draw pictures, write a note, something. But I at least need those few things. I need a minute to stop. Let me just check my cache. Let me sentence the stuff down to cache, from cache to memory. And then let me close.
Or a written piece.
And let me close space. What's that?
I mean, or a written piece somewhere. But what I really wanted to say was this is going to take more than a second and a minute, Rocco. This is going to take a while, right?
I mean, no, because you can gauge what kind of a transition is. That was a 5-second transition. She just needs a parcel of my attention to have another logistical thought. And I just need a second just so I don't lose my thread. Just a second, yeah? I deal with this and I come back and I can pick up my stuff a bit easier. I might not pick it up perfectly, but this helps me agile my way towards what I'd want to have tracked better next time. Now, they're the same protocol, but more expanded is when I'm closing my space for the end of the day.
That's the real deal.
So
really.
You're right, but so now to me that must work for both. Yeah.
So therefore, a small interruption will have a different cadence to it, a different protocol to it. Like almost
same protocol, different expression. Let me give you an example. In your business, when you're rolling out a new system altogether, you'd need project management and deployment management. There's like a thing. But when everybody already has a tool, you don't run project management to issue the new release or the patch. You have release management. It's very similar protocols or very similar key points. But you're right. Sorry, the protocol is actually an adjusted protocol. This is a more focus on this and less on that. And this is same highlights, but much more depth on the planning, the communications, the blah, blah, blah. So protocol is a tricky word. We need to figure out what we mean. But this is what I'm trying to say. Everything that we're doing here is agile and everything we're doing is kind of procedural. It's just sometimes the procedure is shaped differently to accommodate different depths of need or requirement.
Say that again, Rocco. Say that again. I sort of
like the release management and the project management, they're both ticking the same boxes: planning, communication, deployment, testing, blah.
Yeah.
They both have the same kind of procedure that needs to happen, but they have different focal lengths and like expansion or contraction, depth or simpleness of different aspects of these things. We can just intuit
it. That's the right metaphor, really. That's the right simile almost. So a smaller interruption versus an end of the cycle.
Correct. And we need to have answers for both.
Yes, exactly.
And then the funny thing is, then switching back, when I'm at my desk, I'm at my desk. I can make notes and I can sit down and clear my cache and sit down and think. But what happens if I'm just coming in from that into here? Now it's a slightly different.
Yes. So
The decommissioning process is different to the commissioning process.
commissioning process.
And
Yes.
there's
Yes.
I'm decommissioning my work persona, but I'm also now bringing my home persona online, and I want some changelog that I can refer to. That my wife is frustrated today. Her best friend lost her father. Maya didn't sleep last night. These are the things she cares about. I need to bring them now online so that I can function in that space.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by switching contexts. Yeah. Because
like
whatever
this.
I
I
wrote
like
down
this,
from
yeah.
Keish there, part of it I kept with me, which is why there's a message I wanted to pass on to her or bring into the dinner table conversation or something. So those lives are also living across each other as well
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
mindful of
Yeah.
each other. This is complex, which is why I wrote the first half just explaining the problem, that first essay. Yeah. Now you can see how much thought goes into when I create a protocol. This is all the things that I'm thinking about, the archetype, the real life examples, what I can learn from business, what I can learn from mythology, what I can learn from psychology. And how do you mix it all together? What does the wisdom say here? And now our job is to refine this. We've begun articulating it. Now I'm going to refine it over this next week. So what you're going to see coming off the desk of Rocco Jarman for the A Better Way project is going to be this. I'm just bringing you into my process. Now we're all thinking of things like this. So if you've got thoughts of this, you go onto the Trello card and you add the notes. Or you just add a voice recording, or you do something, right? And then what I'll do is I'll come up with something. I've taken all of this thought now. Now I'm going to come up with something, and then I'm going to showcase it back to you via Substack, via a video, whatever the case is. And then we say, okay, I think it's got a few holes. We make tweaks, and then we deploy and we test. And then we come back and we tell us how it's going, and then we'd refine some more. And then when, okay, I'm going to run with this now for a month. Then it's deployed. But it's not deployed finished. It's deployed always in test. We test in prod. That's one of our mantras. That's our message for today. Our message for the community today is you are always testing in prod. That's what jiu-jitsu means. That's what the sacred game means. There are phases of your life, like that book, The Hearth and the Well, where it's just you and you're working your own things out privately and you're retroing it and all the rest of it. But outside of that small window, that cocoon where you separate yourself from the cadence and the clockwork of the universe, you're always forced to test in prod. And if you want to accelerate and you want to get mastery of your own life, you don't live life on the test bench or work it all out in the test bench and then try and trickle it into your life. You just have to test in prod. We haven't got time. It's an illusion. We haven't got time. And that means you have to be authentic. That means you have to make mistakes. That means authenticity has to be practiced. That means we are here to learn from our stuff. That means we're here to play. We're playing to learn, not playing to win. Yeah. So that we can win. The main thing. That's the main so that.
So Rocco,
Yeah.
can we leave with a 1.0 practice? So let me tell you what I'm thinking really. What is
Oh,
coming
just a
up for me
basic
right now.
handoff now.
Yeah. So what's coming up for me is, out of all of this that we've discussed here, I want to have 3 bunch of sticky notes on my desk always. And they will have every time I need to transition from one to other, I'm going to have to write a change log, probably as small as something on a sticky note,
Yeah.
and leave it there always, and keep these always with me. So if I'm going to my office, I'm taking these sticky notes with me, and every time I'm coming back from office, I'm reading up the change log from my work
And I
purpose
just put
work
it here on my
change.
phone. My change log is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the change log can actually be there. So that can be a 1.0 practice, but what it's missing right now is that prayer piece.
Okay,
the
so
prayer
let me
piece
give
of,
you what I've got so far.
yeah.
We were talking about this the other day, and you kept noticing what's on the background of my screen. And one of them was because I've got all these wallpapers that I create for myself, and which we'll create for the Better Way community. They things like this.
Mm.
And there's a few of these things, right, that I've got.
Mm.
The one says choose this, the other one says clear your cache.
Ah, yes.
Right. And so what we're really doing is we're not just clearing our cache, clearing it, because that's
Mm.
necessary sometimes. I had an argument with somebody on the phone, at the licensing department. Then I must get on here, and somebody asked me a question, and I'm secretly still letting the shadow of
Yeah.
that anger l- lean over
Pour
the
out.
present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so clearing your cache is just this psychological hygiene that you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in our instance, it's a similar word. It's a magic word. It always says clear your cache, which invites us to invoke who am I supposed to be in this moment and what am I allowing from the previous browsing session of life to overshadow this one. So clearing your cache is a magical invocation because we know what that
Nice.
means. We know what it means to try to fill out a form online and our password we reset it and then it doesn't work on the screen. And the problem is not that we're not doing what we're supposed to do. The problem is that there's a misalignment between the experience you're having on the screen versus the caching that is being held in memory in the background. And it's remembering shit that you didn't mean and vice versa. Now it's a confusing exercise, confounding exercise. And there's something similar in that to us swapping contexts. Yeah. So clearing your cache, sometimes our option with a browser is just to clear it altogether. Sure. But when you want to clear your cache and shut your browser down and there's tabs that are open, some of these you want to create bookmarks for.
Yeah.
You want to save them.
Yeah.
And now you actually want to organize your bookmarks because you don't just want to save this messy pile. You want to refine that list and then you want to keep refining that list. And that implies now there has to be a weekly practice where you go through your changelog and you actually sort that shit out. Otherwise, it now gets messy. Yeah. So I'm thinking of this exactly like shutting a browser down. Some things I need to store in long-term memory and some things I need to store in offline memory. So that's offline memory is actually still online. It's on my phone, but it's in like a notes app or a sticky note app or something. Or it actually is just sticky notes. Here I wrote website because I suddenly realized my website's doesn't reflect what I'm doing. So now I know now that that's the thought that I've got. That's deeply unstructured. There's a better way even of doing that. But clear your cache is just this thing. And we need to remember it's clear your cache and then sentencing. And so why I like the word psychopomp is it talks about the underworld and it talks about weighing the soul. Or it talks about paying a coin to the ferryman to get to the other side. It talks about the river of forgetfulness. There's all of these wonderful ideas that if we just get hold of the old myths of the psychopomps, it'll remind us of those transition periods that we are going through anyway. And one of them is sentencing, the weighing of the soul. That is a judgment thing. And sentencing in record management and information management is simply deciding how you're going to treat a certain piece of information, whether it's going to be stored as a PDF on a server, as a piece of paper in a box, online or on site or off site. And there's a clever way in which you sentence things that you know you're going to recall. Those are in the live system. Things that the auditor will look for, you can store that in cold storage. And something that you just need there for legal purposes, it's okay to take 2 weeks to go find it, that you can store in offline paper. Now, some things are just more relevant and more top of mind than others. Yeah, it's not
That's
foolproof.
basically sentencing, what you're saying.
Sentencing.
Judge,
That's what
discern,
sentencing
and
means. You're deciding when you
yeah.
clear your cache down, what are you doing with the salient parts of those things in such a way that you can pick up a thread of continuity without wasting cycles looking for that thread. So this is also the way you handle sessions in an app. It's threading, caching. We need to think about that. And so when I say clear your cache and sentencing, so it's pause, pause, right? I'm now preparing for this transition. I'm eyes wide open. I'm going from work Rocco to family Rocco. Clear your cache. Okay, what's in my cache? These are the things that I'm anxiously holding in my mind, in my body, in my intentionality. Just find a way to organize these. Now, there's clever ways I can recommend to do that. I'll come up with that. Categories. I can suggest quick categories that are going to, it's a great way of organizing all this information. And then go on to the next one. Now, I don't know how to do it back, but it should be some version of the same.
So
And
pause, which
sometimes a part of that is it's almost like I imagine I have to walk up to the wardrobe. I have to take this Rocco suit off, and I have to put Rocco, the dad, and the husband suit on. I have to kind of switch contexts. And what that reminds me of is when you are playing like an online game like World of Warcraft. 1 minute you're a barbarian and you're doing this, and this is the value you have to the project or the team. But when you join another raiding party, you have to do a different thing. And you've got to get yourself into that persona and into that. And I don't know what to call that. But that's almost like stepping inside that pair of shoes or putting on that hat. So to me, it's like changing hats, you know?
yeah,
I'm the
and
postman, but if
and
you go to the next window, I'm the mayor. But if you go to the next window, I'm selling tickets. I don't want you to talk about the post when you're at the ticket window. I don't know what to call that.
yeah,
It's
but
almost
I
like
like the
going backstage. There's one actor, one person playing 6 roles, and he has to go off stage quickly to change his outfit and remember the script and the persona, and then come back out onto that.
So it's only prudent and practical for him to have the dress already ironed and the script already ready to just have a quick look, right? That's what we're doing really.
Correct. And the script is such a lovely word because it's not just a change log, it's also a script to say this is the way the story was unfolding. This is what's happening in this guy's life. This is what's unfolding in the present moment. It's a wonderful way of saying it. So maybe a lovely way of us talking about this is imagining that we are a single actor on a stage and that we're playing multiple roles in a single story. And what we're trying to do is weave all of those together in a way that over the story you actually see that person becoming one character, you know? So that's what I've got for you, man. We're up on an hour now. It's longer than I wanted to go, but it's exactly the level and the tone that I wanted to talk at because it's not dry. It's not spiritual. It's not just practical. It's all of those things and psychology and that's what I want a better way to be. It's got to be whole of life. That's the sacred game, you know. Anyway,
And
I
I
don't know
think
if you wanted to add something into that.
yeah. So what we have right now, so we started with we wanted to discuss the roadmap. We barely touched on it, honestly, but then we segued into the first user story that we're working on.
Yeah.
And that is how do you live across multiple lives, which all of us do, whether we realize it consciously or not. All of us live across multiple lives. And what we have talked about here as the first user story is the transition between those multiple lives, especially how you transition from, or rather the pause from one to the next. How do you manage that? So the 1.0 practice that we have come up with right now is it needs to have a pause, which means you're preparing, you're actually realizing that it's the end of this cycle and I'm transitioning to the next,
Closing
end
the
of this
space.
self,
Yeah.
closing the space. So pause. The next is clear your cache, which means really getting a
Writing
log
it
of all
down.
the thoughts, writing it down, writing down your thoughts and your feelings also. So that will take some practice, honestly. It's not going to be just as easy
No,
as
these are
Rocco and
all
Chetan saying
practices.
it.
Yeah.
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 So you put those things down, you pause, you put those things down.
Yeah.
And if you're actually transitioning to your next self, so let's say, I'll give an example for myself. If I'm transitioning down from this a better way self, the spiritual work self that I have, into my corporate work self, if I have a backlog already from yesterday, if I'm transitioning from this to that, I pick up that backlog, I have a look at it, and I try to digest and um, sort of recollect whatever it is that I was doing with the help of this log, right?
That's
That's
it.
going to be
That's it.
that's the practice that will help me transition there. Now, what we are missing is having um, the prayer that you shared, some
That's
sort of
my
a
work now. I need to now
yeah,
put 1.0 out.
yes,
But now we
yes,
all know. Now the group knows what's expected. And so when I showcase this, it's like, oh yeah, I was waiting for that. Now we've got engagement. continuity, support. People are ready to test it. Now we need our friends. Let's just see if anybody came online to see your. Obviously, I'm not going to
Actually,
let you
two,
on.
Khushi and Yash did. They did wish us a good morning. And then Yash actually has a question. I'm
Yes.
not sure if it's not related to this, but let's pick it up anyway. Yeah? So Yash says, I wanted to ask you, I just completed The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and the main character, Howard Rourke, had me thinking about doing to its intent, not people. So should I be pure like Rourke, or is it not possible? He's like word shit pranya in situations.
Yeah.
Honestly, Yash, I'm not too sure.
I know Ayn Rand, and
Mm,
it's kind of actualization idealism. It's juvenile form of actualization. It's not an initiated, mature form. It almost is. It almost is. In other words,
mm,
some of the pragmatism is a lot like Nietzsche. It's a lot. You just got to be real. You just got to talk straight. You just got to do what you want to do and not worry about others. But there is a juvenile ignorance in the philosophy of Ayn Rand, which overlooks this other part that Chetan and I often talk about, which is that we are all inextricably intertwined. We are interwoven with the dependency to the containers that we live in, and even if we don't realize there's a relationship, that's just an ignorance and a blindness in us that we also need to be initiated into. That we're
initiated,
all
correct.
actually
Yeah,
connected, because all of these human beings are still collaborating towards a collective reality that's unfolding based on how we contribute to it and participate in it.
yeah,
And we're all existing on the same basic platform of commons, the same oceans, the same ecosystem globally, the same community of online exchange in the internet. We're now you can't pick and choose. And my my caution to you is Ayn Rand sounds clever to an uninitiated young mind, young soul. And then to take that too literally without realizing the limitations of that philosophy and that wisdom can actually make you
a bit of a narcissist, really.
that's
On
that's the word I was careful of saying, but it actually is. It's exactly
yeah,
that. There's a form of spiritual narcissism that happens
yeah,
because you
yeah,
almost disregard the selfhood of others because you're so focused on the selfhood of self. And it looks like
exactly.
if everyone just did this, it would be fine. But think about children, think about animals. Not everyone has the same capacity to flex their agency in the world. And part of our responsibility of when we inherit our sense of agency is to put a wing out, to be the brother or the neighbor or the something that we actually would have appreciated so that our pathway towards this form of inheritance of agency is not blocked by somebody else's disregard in their own like Ayn Rand fountainhead kind of bullshit. So
Yeah.
that's my advice, but you do you.
Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that, Rocco. In fact, Ayn Rand's Fountainhead is a book that I loved when I read it the first time, but there were parts of it that really did feel that this is not the best advice I would give to everyone, you know. And the word I can say now safely is that to an initiated adult, I can give that advice because I know they have their
Yeah,
discernment and the intentionality to
yeah,
actually do the better thing, not
yeah,
just everything that's written right there, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
if given to an uninitiated college guy or a student, really someone who does not really understand the interconnectedness that Rocco talked about, it can actually be a recipe for disaster. Really, it can
yeah.
make
And the key word here
narcissists.
is initiation.
That's exactly
That's
it.
it.
That's exactly
That's the
it.
key word.
Yeah,
The key missing piece
yeah,
from Ayn Rand's work is initiation, the necessity of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Um, that's it. That's it.
yeah. And
All right.
Yash actually resonates. He says, "Thanks, Rocco. Thank you, Yash. Thank you for resonating with it." Yeah,
Good.
always here to
Love the
help.
resonance. Okay. I
Yeah,
need to wrap up, man. I want to wrap up,
yeah,
actually. I want to wrap up. I don't want
yeah,
these
yeah.
things to go on too long. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a feedback that our wives have given us multiple times already. And yes, that it's good to hear that. Okay, yeah.
All
I
right.
think
Now,
that's
I'm going
about
to do
it,
a quick
Rocco.
debrief offline and then we'll.
Yeah.
So let's close the
Okay.
space. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Chetan, I think this is not a perfect start, but there is no perfect start. This is We're now
It's the
building
good
towards
stuff.
something meaningful, and
Yeah.
it's actually going to help us um, increase and optimize our momentum and our continuity between all of our
Yeah.
lives. We
Yeah.
recognize the
And
problem, and now we're fixing it.
hmm. And what we'll hold ourselves to, Rocco, is you are going to come up with the practice,
Yeah,
right? The practice that we're going to
that's going
talk
to
about.
happen in
And then,
this week now.
yeah. And I think I can perhaps come up with a video talking about that practice in a
That's it.
simplified
That's it.
manner.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Right?
That's it. And then maybe you can also do a few posts, and we can start getting that a better
Yeah.
way Substack now, because now we've actually got a thing that we want to talk about and
Yes.
produce for
Yes.
the, so that we'll put it straight into there. Now it means that one of those posts and artifacts has to be the roadmap, has to be the backlog that we're busy refining, the upcoming user stories. We'll start
Correct.
producing these artifacts as well. Okay,
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
All done.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week. We will be back with the next thing, and it's gonna be the same time, right, Rocco?
Yes,
8
we'll
a.m.
just keep
IST,
sticking to this
10:30.
time until further notice. And now next week is not going to be an agile focus. It's going to just be a talk. We're going to,
Exactly. Like the Kali
talk about
Yoga
a
talk.
topic or, huh?
Yeah. Like the Kali Yoga
Yeah,
talk.
like the Kali Yuga, yeah. But I think
You
it
know,
might even
Rocco?
be this two lives thing that, switching gears and.
Oh, in fact, I think we'll be done with our 20-day life challenge by the end of
Yeah, we
next
can
week.
do a
So
debrief.
we can do a debrief of that.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, good people of the internet. Thank you, doom scrollers. If you stayed for this long, you're not really a doom scroller, but we
We're all doom
appreciate you for that.
scrollers. We're scrolling the great scroll of doom right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.